Willkommen in einem neuen video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case part 3 of my Napoleonische-Kriegsführung video series. In this video I'll be covering quality, troop tests, troop orders and observation. This video is an updated version of the same video which I posted only about less than a month ago. I decided to implement a number of simplification in the original command rules which were simply too complex in their original form. The rules are the same, but aspects of commanders have been simplified for clarity and gameplay, and that's what this video will reflect. Notwithstanding that, the commander rules contain a lot of bling, most of which could be ignored if players wish to do so. The rules are designed so in most cases everything has a quality of 3, which is ordinary. The actual elements may differ in class, morale and skill, but these values are built into the Part 3 equipment data charts, which are contained in the scenario PDF file. Players can simply assume this standard quality value for their games and bypass many of the quality and commander rules. The complexity relates to different quality, or the complexity that's related to different quality values, are all contained in the command rules, as the basic quality of any element is taken from their commander, or in most cases, or in some cases, or most cases I should say, the sub-commander. Each player's army or force mix is commanded by an army commander, otherwise referred to as the C&C. Each C&C has a base quality, which is used for initiative, allowed actions, command points, and determines the base quality for all subordinate elements, if there are any. Subordinate to the C&C are any directly attached elements, and all the core divisional commanders, also referred to as sub-commanders. Each sub-commander has its own base quality, which is used to determine allowed actions, command points, and determines the base quality of its subordinate elements. In this case, the C&C is ordinary and has a quality value of 3. 2 of the sub-commanders are also ordinary and have the same basic quality value of 3. One sub-commander is superior, which means its base quality is 5. The base quality represents a combination of national doctrine, tactics, training and organisation, and any unique command capability of the C&C or sub-commander. The base quality of a commander can range from 1 to 6, although quality 6 only applies to fanatic commanders, which have a range of special restrictions. In most cases, quality will range from 1, which is incompetent and is very poor indeed, to 5, which is superior and which is very good indeed. A C&C and sub-commander also possesses their own professional skill value. By default, all commanders have a professional skill of ordinary, which means there is no impact. Some commanders can possess a superior professional skill or, alternatively, inferior professional skill, which can affect the commander's command points available. A C&C and sub-commander available command points can be impacted by its professional skill level, either in a positive or a negative manner. In this case, we have a C&C, which is a quality of superior, or Q5, which normally gives it 5 command points. It has a professional skill of excellent, which gives it a +2 modifier for command points only, giving it 7 command points per game turn. In this example, we have a sub-commander with a quality of 4, which gives it 4 command points. Its professional skill is superior, which gives it an extra command point modifier. This greatly assists it in moving its subordinate elements. Professional skill only impacts the number of command points a sub-commander possesses. This can be positive or negative. As a result, the differences between specific commanders, that is professional skill, only impacts the number of command points that commander has, either C&C or a sub-commander. It does not impact the quality level of that particular commander. So we can have a rather unusual situation where a commander could have a good quality, Q4, but because of some personal issue that commander possesses, drunkenness, sleepiness, injury or whatever, has a professional skill which gives it a negative, which means it gets less command points than it would otherwise expect. Subordinate to the sub-commanders are any directly attached elements, with all elements being attached or must be attached to a commander. In all cases, the default base quality of the sub-commander is 3. Personal quality or professional skill does not impact subordinate elements. Incidentally, elements can find themselves without a commander during the game because if the commander is killed. This is not a good thing. The quality value of a commander affects the number of command points it has available each game turns, and any quality test required by the commander or any subordinate elements uses this quality value. The number of command points is equal to the commander's base quality value, modified by its professional skill. In addition, a commander has the ability to make a save attempt to avoid an element which has just become disrupted, but at the risk of the commander being killed. This ability to mitigate disruption represents the commander's inspirational impact, which allows a commander, at the risk of his own life, to inspire his subordinate element to prevent it from becoming disrupted. This may seem complex, and it is. It was only inserted because the gamers which assisted me in this playtesting were Empire 3 players, and they all wanted the same level of command details. Players can readily ignore professional skills and inspirational impact drills if they so desire. Let's drill down into all of this in a little bit more detail. An army commander is called a CNC, as we know, and the corps commander is called a sub-commander. In some cases, the sub-commander may be actually a brigade commander or a divisional commander historically. The CNC or sub-commander element has a base quality value and has a professional skill which has an impact on command points only. Base quality affects a CNC's initiative die roll and any commander's allowed actions available for its subordinate elements, but not subordinate sub-commanders if it's a CNC, as the sub-commanders have their own values. The quality value that each commander possesses determines the quality of subordinate elements for quality tests and affects the number of command points available. Example, a command quality of 3 means all subordinate elements have a base quality of 3. Professional skill can impact the amount of command points available for the CNC or sub-commander. It only affects available command points for that commander. It has no other impact. Each commander has an inspirational impact which modifies the die roll of any attempt to save an element from becoming disrupted. Disruption basically means routing. The element would normally be removed from the playing area and you would attempt to rally it and bring it back. But if that particular element occupies a critical part of the battlefield, you may want to throw your commander in to inspire the troops not to become disrupted. However, there is a risk that the commander is killed, and if the commander is killed, then everyone under the commander has no commander for that particular game turn or next game turn, which could have a very serious impact. The basic troop tests used in these rules are the quality test. In some circumstances, elements or commanders have to conduct a quality test in order to perform an action or avoid a negative result. This is called a quality test and is the only troop test in the rules. A quality test is comparing the quality with a D6 die roll. As long as the die roll is equal to or less than the quality value, then whatever that is being tested has passed. A die roll of 6 is always an automatic failure, which is why a fanatical commander, which has a quality of 6, doesn't give it much benefit in terms of quality tests. During each phasing a player fire and movement phase, the number of actions that elements can perform will vary. In most cases, a player can have 2 actions, but if the commander quality is low or higher, a test may be required for the second action if low, or a test can be conducted for a third action if high. If a commander's quality is 1 or 2, a second action is only allowed if a quality test is passed, which is very difficult. If a commander's quality is 5 or 6, a third action is allowed if a quality test is passed, which is a lot easier. As you can see, the higher the quality of the commander, the more that commander's subordinate elements can do stuff. In some cases, if a commander is experiencing fatigue or exhaustion, they may need to conduct extra quality tests in order to get their troops to do anything. Fatigue and exhaustion occurs when the corps-sized formation or formation unit has been active for more than 6 game turns for fatigue and an additional 6 game turns for exhaustion. When a commander is fatigued, it must conduct a quality test if it wishes to conduct more than 1 action. This applies to all its subordinate elements irrespective of quality. Exhausted commanders can never conduct more than 1 action and must take a quality test for this single action. In some cases, a player is forced to retreat their army if a number of elements eliminated or disrupted in the game turn is excessive. The test to retreat is a standard quality test using the CNC quality, subtracting 5 from the die roll and using multiple die rolls based on what was disrupted or eliminated during the game turns. We'll deal with that in the following video, but if you're forced to retreat, you've basically lost the game. While rare, engineering is possible in these rules. Some engineering tests require the engineer element to conduct a quality test. Engineer elements can attempt to destroy bridges after a successful quality test. If it's a major bridge, this has to be repeated, with the first successful quality test damaging the bridge and the second destroying it. Engineers can destroy linear obstructions after a successful quality test in addition. In some cases and situations, if an element sees enemy on its flank, it's allowed to conduct a quality test in order to turn and face, irrespective of if it's been activated or not. This is the only significance of the element, or this is only really significant if the element is not activated, as if the element is activated, it would just simply turn to face normally. This is called a reaction move. Any element which has not been activated may make a facing change after a successful quality check. If unsuccessful, no facing change is allowed, and it may result in the element being impacted on its flank, which is not good. An element's overall base quality does have an impact in close assault. The individual element, class, skill and morale values are built into its combat values, so no special consideration is required in that case. But if there is a base quality difference between two sides in a close assault, it has an impact to the close assault by modifying the row or column used. Close assault modifiers are the difference in quality value. So if one side is quality 4, the other is 3, then the side with a 4 gets a 1 shift benefit and the side with 3 gets a 1 shift negative. The quality of a CNC is used to determine which side has initiative. If the initiative difference is great enough, then one side can obtain an elan bonus, which allows all elements an extra action. If a player gains an elan bonus, all elements allowed actions increase by 1 to a maximum of 3. If a quality 1 or 2 can execute, thus a quality 1 or 2 can execute 2 actions, and a third requires a quality test. As we've mentioned many times, a commander's quality, including any professional skill modifier, is used to determine how many command points that commander has. Activating combat units, which are a collection of elements, and initiating close assault costs command points. A commander's available command points during each phasing fire movement phase is equal to its current quality with the skill modifier applied. Every commander has a command radius, and elements outside the command radius has a quality reduction of 1. If a commander is eliminated, the quality of all subordinate elements is quality 0 until a replacement commander is deployed. This replacement commander has a quality 1 less than the eliminated commander, but this can never fall below 1. The replacement commander is placed in base-to-base contact with any subordinate element. The replacement commander has no skill modifiers. If a commander's command, that is elements below it, have suffered at least 50% casualties, that is at least half of all the elements are disrupted or eliminated, its quality is reduced by 1. If a commander's command has suffered 75% or more casualties, its quality is reduced by 2. Quality can never drop below 1 due to casualties. This is determined by the total number of subordinate elements, excluding the commander itself, and excluding any non-combat elements and any off-playing area elements. Casualties are any elements removed from the playing area, eliminated or disrupted. The CNC counts the number of all on-playing area elements in the army for this modifier's purpose. Elements can be spent. This spent status represents the elements which are basically more fragile, which tend to be caused by exhaustion, lack of ammunition, or shaken confidence. Spent elements which suffer a disorder become disrupted, removed from the playing area immediately with no rally possible. Apart from this, they conduct movement, fire, combat and quality tests normally. Disordered elements which recover conduct a quality test. If they fail, they become spent. All elements which rally and return to the playing area are spent. In addition to spent, elements can possess good order, be disordered or disrupted. Disorder and disruptions are caused by enemy, close combat or fire combat, or if carried away by a retreat. Elements can also be fresh, fatigued and exhausted, with fatigue and exhaustion being caused by prolonged activity. Elements which become disordered due to fire combat automatically take cover, if not already, and may make a retreat move before taking cover. If the element is currently taking cover or in terrain which offers cover, it cannot conduct a retreat move. Elements which become disordered in close combat continue to fight, but if they retreat, they automatically take cover at the end of their retreat move. Elements which are carried away by a retreat become disordered. When an element is disordered, the element halves the number of dice rounded up in fire combat or close combat. An element recovers from disorder by the expenditure of an action. Until this occurs, it cannot move, conduct opportunity fire or return fire, but can conduct close combat if engaged by an enemy close assault. If a disordered element suffers a second disorder or suffers a disruption due to enemy fire combat, it's disrupted. If disrupted, an element is removed from the playing area and is eligible for rally. A commander, as well as all subordinate element, which is active for 6 game turns, becomes fatigued. Skipped night game turns are counted for the purposes of fatigue. Being active is defined as any commander or subordinate element moving or conducting fire combat. Subordinate commanders are not counted as subordinate elements in this case. When a commander is fatigued, it must conduct a quality test if it wishes to conduct more than one action. This applies to all its subordinate elements, irrespective of quality. If a fatigued commander, as well as all subordinate elements, are active for an additional 6 game turns, it becomes exhausted. Exhausted commanders can never conduct more than one action and must take a quality test in order to do so. Being active is defined as any commander or subordinate element moving or conducting fire combat. Subordinate commanders are not counted as subordinate elements. A commander can reduce the fatigue or exhaustion value by 1 if they avoid the conditions for being active and ensure no elements are also subject to enemy fire combat. Elements can deploy for defence, which basically means that they adopt a low-profile defensive stance. If an element deploys, which requires the expenditure of one action, it can take advantage of terrain which offers concealment and protection, as well as adopting a lower profile, such as kneeling. Concealing affects observation, while protection affects fire combat. If an element moves, it is no longer deployed. Elements which are disordered or deployed are considered to be taking cover and gain a fire combat benefit when fired upon. If in cluttered terrain which offers extra concealment or rough terrain which offers extra protection, the effect is greater. Elements taking cover in featureless terrain either has no effect, well, there is no effect, or it's done basically to avoid the disadvantages of being featureless terrain. It does not provide any benefit unless in fortification or entrenchments in this particular case. Some elements may need to adopt a loose formation when required to move through some types of terrain. This occurs the moment the element needs to move through that terrain, which forces it to adopt a loose formation, and then it recovers the moment they exit the terrain. Adopting a loose formation has a negative effect when conducting fire combat or if engaging in close combat. An element can observe another element as long as an unblocked line of sight exists between the two elements. In some cases, a line of sight is blocked when it's traced a certain distance through certain terrain types. Lighting conditions can also impose a maximum distance the LOS can adopt. To determine if an element can observe another element, trace an unblocked line of sight between two elements. Lighting conditions can impose a maximum distance of the line of sight. All distances are measured by base widths, so if a base width is 4 cm, each base width has a length of 4 cm. As you can see here, typically in daylight clear, you're going to be able to see whatever you want to see as long as there's a unblocked line of sight. Let's look at an example. It's daylight and clear weather. As long as the line of sight is not blocked, all elements in this case can see each other because the distance between the elements is only 10 base widths. The following game turn is dusk. In this case, the opposing forces cannot see each other, but at 10 base widths, they couldn't really do very much with each other regardless, so it doesn't really matter. Line of sight can be blocked by opaque terrain, such as hills. Other terrains can block a line of sight if it traverses a given distance through that terrain type, such as with cluttered terrain. Enemy and friendly elements block a line of sight. unless skirmish infantry, artillery or transport elements. Friendly elements in base-to-base contact do not block a line of sight. It's assumed the elements are working together, thus are deployed to allow a line of sight to exist if required. A line of sight is blocked if it traverses more than a quarter base width if heavy cluttered terrain, or half a base width if standard cluttered terrain, or one base width if open cluttered terrain. Cluttered terrain can be woods or built-up areas. In this example, it's daylight and clear weather, so elements can see any other element within 10 base widths, as long as the line of sight is not blocked. To observe the top Yaga, the line of sight traverses more than a quarter base width of heavy cluttered terrain, which means the line of sight is blocked. The Yaga element cannot see the enemy dragoons or vice versa. The bottom Yaga is within half a base width of the edge of the heavy woods, so it can be observed and it can observe out of the heavy woods. In this example, it's daylight, clear weather, so elements can see any other elements within 10 base widths, as long as the line of sight is not blocked. To observe the top Yaga, the line of sight traverses less than half a base width of standard cluttered terrain, which means the line of sight is not blocked. In this case, the Yaga element can be observed and can observe the enemy dragoons. The bottom Yaga is within half a base width of the edge of the woods, so it can be observed and can observe out of the heavy woods without any problems with terrain blocking LOS. We now look at an example where everyone's within a cluttered terrain or terrain. The top French skirmish cannot see the Prussian skirmish element because the line of sight is blocked. It's one base width. The bottom French skirmish can see the Prussian skirmish because they're in base-to-base contact. In this example, in open woods, the top French skirmish cannot see the Prussian skirmish because it's within the open woods and the line of sight traverses the open woods for more than one base width. The bottom French skirmish can see the Prussian skirmish because it is tracing a line of sight which is less than one base width through the open wood. Basically, all elements are visible according to the observation rules, except when a line of sight is blocked. Elements block a line of sight. The exceptions are skirmish infantry, skirmish cavalry, artillery or transport never blocks a line of sight. Friendly elements in base-to-base contact also never block a line of sight. It can't possibly be a Napoleonic set of rules without the ability of hiding behind the crest of a hill. An element is considered behind the crest if observed from within 45 degrees of its front. If behind a crest, then a line of sight is blocked when on the hill. Elements on a higher elevation can see over elements on lower elevation, allowing them to conduct fire combat against them. As with line of sight over terrain, the elements being looked over have a dead ground behind it. For simplicity, this is 3 centimetres in all cases, or one base width. In this example, the artillery can conduct direct fire against the infantry on the right, firing over another infantry element. And so we come to an end of part 3 of my video on Napoleonische-Kriegsführung rules, in this case looking at covering quality, troop tests, troop orders and observation. Alle guten Dinge kommen zu einem Ende.